My dear friends, welcome to Rajashekhar classes on applied data science with Python. This is lecture number 507. In this lecture, we will try to understand EDA binary classification task. So, now let's pose this problem as a classification task. So, what do you have now? We basically have pairs of vertices between which there is an edge. If I represent 1 as being having an edge and 0 being not having an edge, the dataset that I have right now only have edges. If you look at the table, just see the table. If you look at the table that I have right now, I basically have my source vertex, my destination vertex. So now let's assume I have u1 and u5. I only have those pairs of vertices between which I have an edge. I have an edge. So if I try to pose this as classification task, as a binary classification task, in the table that I have right now, in the training data that is given train.csv, I only have those pairs of vertices amongst which there is an edge, isn't it? Just see here, let me say I have vertices u1. There is an edge between u1 and u5. Therefore, I am keeping label 1. There is an edge between u1 u6. Therefore, I am keeping label 1. Means I have a this is train.csv. In this train.csv, I have only pairs of vertices whose class label is 1, isn't it? Let's assume in my graph I have other vertices, like I have vertex u2, isn't it? I have an edge between u1 and u5, and there is also an edge between u1 and u6. In my original directed graph G, if there is no edge between u1 and u2, and that information is not given in train.csv, that is important. There is no edge between u1 and u2, therefore that information is not given in train.csv file. This is what exists in the train.csv. There is an edge between u1 and u5, there is an edge between u1 and u6, but there is no other information, isn't it? I don't have 0 labeled data which we have to create, isn't it? In train.csv, I have only 1 labeled data. We have to create all 0 labeled data points, isn't it? This is very, very important. We have to create all 0 labeled data points. So in a classification task, I need some data points which are class label 1 and other data points which are class label 0. Now I don't have 0 labeled class points, 0 labeled data points. So what do? I will pick up, let's say I have other vertices. Let me say I have vertices u2, u3, u4, isn't it? Let's assume I have an edge between u1 and u5, isn't it? And I have an edge between u1 and u6. Both of them are input here, but I don't have an edge between u1 comma u2, u1 comma u3, u1 comma u4. Those edges do not exist. These edges do not exist. So what I can do is I can add u1, u2 and give class label 0, isn't it? What is the label of u1, u2? Is a class label of 0 because there is no edge between them. Similarly, I can add u1, u3 and I can give a class label 0, isn't it? I can add other u1, u3 and give class label. Similarly, I can add u1, u4 and give a class label 0, because these edges do not occur. These edges are not there in my data set right now, isn't it? So given data set, we have 1.86 million vertices or nodes, and we have 9.43 million edges. Suppose I have vertices like this, vertices u1, u2, u3 and u4. Now one thing you can notice is, in my data set I have u1, u2 with class label 1, u1, u2 with class label 1, u1, u3 with class label 0, because there is no edge between u1 and u3 in original graph. Similarly, u1, u4 with class label 0, isn't it? Because there is no edge between u1 and u4. Because there is no edge between u1 and u4 in original graph. What will we do here is, we will introduce those edges, those pairs of vertices where the shortest path length is greater than 2. That is important. Let's take u1 and u3. u1 is a user who is following u2. u2 is a user who is following u3. There is a very high chance that u1 would eventually follow u3, because these three, u1, u2, u3, could be friends. Probably u1 does not know that u3 exists. So what we are going to do is, we will avoid adding pairs of vertices like u1, u3, isn't it? We will avoid, just this point is important, avoid adding pairs of vertices, like u1 comma u3, isn't it? The length of the path. What is the path length here? The path length between u1 and u3, the length of the path between u1 and u3 is 2, isn't it? That's what it says. Length of the path between u1 and u3 is 2. The length of the shortest path from u1 to u3 is not greater than 2. We will not add it to our data set as 0 labeled points, isn't it? Or bad link, because there is a very high chance that eventually u1 is connected to u3. But look at u1, u4. The shortest path length from u1 to u4 is 3, which is greater than 2. This number 3 is greater than 2. So we will let those pairs of vertices which have path length greater than 2 to be potentially present in our data set as a 0 labeled pair of vertices. I am saying potentially be there because we are going to do randomly sample. So let me explain these steps so that it will clearer for you. We are going to create the same number of the same number of 0 labeled pairs of vertices, that is 9, 4, 3, 7, 5 and 9, as we are going to create the same number of 0 labeled pairs of vertices as 1 labeled pairs of vertices that we have. Then I am going to randomly sample. I'm going to randomly sample 2 vertices. Let me say UA and UB, isn't it? Let me say my vertices are UA and UB. I already kept this particular IPython notebook in my previous lecture video description, and I am working on same IPython notebook, isn't it? I am randomly sample 2 vertices UA and UB. I am going to randomly sample 2 vertices. Then I am going to check if there is an edge between them, isn't it? I am going to check if there is an edge between them. If there is no edge between them, and if the shortest path length if the shortest path length between UA and UB is greater than 2. See, remember, I generated UA and UB vertices randomly. Now, after generated these two vertices UA and UB randomly, first I check there is an edge between UA. Is there any edge between UA and UB? If there is no edge, then check there is a path from UA to UB which is of length greater than 2. If it is, I will add it to list called missing edges, isn't it? I will add it to list called missing edges. My missing edges are basically are zero labeled pairs of vertices. And how many we are generating? I am generating 9.43 millions of pairs of vertices. Again, the summary is I have my original data set. I have my original data set with one label, isn't it? This is whole data came from train.csv. This data came from this particular data came from where it is came. It is from train.csv, isn't it? I am generating some more data points here where all of these are zero labeled, such that for any pair of vertices here there is no edge, and these are picked up such that these picked up randomly such that the length of the shortest path is greater than 2. Very simple. That's how we are constructing the data set. See, remember, in my data sets, in my original data set, I am only given class 1 label data points. Now I am adding class 0 label data points by randomly sampling from my set of vertices through randomization and ensuring that the shortest path length between these pairs of vertices UA and UB is greater than 2, and there is no edge between UA and UB in the original graph. This is how we are adding the data, and I am calling such edges are called missing edges. So I am not given the zero class label data, and I am actually introducing zero label data using some domain knowledge. This is how we are generating bad links. Now we have data set which is balanced, both zero labeled data points and one labeled data points. Now we can apply the standard classification algorithm and feature engineering. Now my data set is with vertices with class labels either 1 or 0. Just try to understand this lecture. I will continue in my next lecture. I will continue same case study in my next lecture, that is in lecture number 508.